I got a letter. The name on the envelope said Mary.
Silent Hill 2 is a game that needs no introduction. We all know that it's an amazing game that boasts an amazing story and a perfect soundtrack and atmosphere. But does this trip to the dark and foggy streets still worth playing today? You are put into the mind of James Sunderland as he visits the foggy town of Silent Hill after receiving a letter from his dead wife Mary, who died 3 years ago.
Could you really be in this town?
But before he could reach the town, he must take a long and quiet walk filled with unnerving and mysterious unseen sounds, which establishes the tone for the game. After that, he'll run into Angela, as well as the other people wandering the town. And it's here that you and James will finally experience the town's dark surprises. There's only a few characters that you'll meet throughout the game, and while some of them, aside from James, are particularly well developed, they do evoke a certain charm that makes them easily sympathetic despite their suspicious nature. Silent Hill 2's story feels like an uncanny dream in which you know there's something strange about the entire concept, but can't quite put your finger on it. The concept of a dead wife writing a letter to James may seem silly and nonsensical, but the game's execution of it was perfect, and it was made even better by the gut punch of a plot twist and ending. Even without knowing the story's lore and symbolism, as a first-timer, I found the game's story to be quite engaging, touching, and very much full of depth, due to the many controversial and dark topics that it addresses. The first Silent Hill game was an impressive feat that showcased an amazing explorable town drenched with atmosphere, and the sequel has greatly improved upon it even more. Seeing the town recreated in greater detail due to the move-of system feels comforting, despite its haunting character. Every time I was allowed to freely roam the streets, I always made sure to visit every nook and cranny and be amazed at the quiet town. And many of the indoor areas are even far creepier, with its extremely tight corridors and it having little to no source of light other than your flashlight. The Toluca prison has to be my personal favorite area in Silent Hill 2, as not only is it effectively mind-boggling, with it forcing you to go deeper and deeper, but it also has tons of genuinely spine-chilling moments thanks to some of the strangest and disturbing random sounds I've ever heard in a game. What makes these sounds much creepier is that you'll never see the creatures making them. When I heard them, I literally just stood there for a whole second and wondering what could have made those sounds. And while the voice acting may not be as good as some praise them to be,
aren't you looking for someone?
That's right.
And the dialogue comes off as a bit comedic at times.
Thanks.
When there's a very impactful scene, each of the actors' suspiciously dodgy acting actually works well with the bizarreness, especially with the ending letter, which makes me want to tear up every time I hear it. It feels jarring when the game immediately switches from pre-rendered cutscenes to in-game models, but its quality is truly undeniably beautiful. The characters are animated so fluidly and with such great detail. If the first Silent Hill game was raw and disturbing, the sequel is instead a haunting and depressing journey. There are fewer panicky moments in this sequel as practically every place is devoid of sound, with only your footsteps and radio static being the sole source of sound. But also due to this quietness, each time a scare does occur, I'm always shocked because they all happen so quickly, and none of them ever border on being a jump scare. First, you're just casually exploring an empty room, then the next you'll come across something jaw-dropping. And the scares and other moments in the game are much more effective due to Akira Yamaoka's superb soundtrack. Each music piece creates strong emotions, making the entire trip to the town feel like a surreal dream. I don't often talk about music in games because some just don't really make that much of an impact on me, but Silent Hill 2's soundtrack is a whole nother level. Silent Hill 2 retains the gameplay as its 1999 predecessor. You'll still be controlling your character with very stiff tank controls and a dynamically fixed camera, and you'll still be equipped with a radio and a flashlight on your journey through town. To be honest, there's not really that much in the way of new content, but rather some of the old features have been updated to make the game feel more polished. Like how James will now look at the direction of an interactable object to make it easier to stand out without including a gamey flashing light indicator, and the game's map is just as satisfying as it once was. Just like how the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. One of the clearest new addition to the game is a difficulty selection for both the game's action and puzzles. Since I'm not that good with video game puzzles, especially with the first games, I only set it on easy. Although, I still often find myself needing to search for the solutions online, And whilst I've had a difficult time solving a few of them, I would be lying if I said I didn't think that all of the puzzles in the game are quite inventive and engaging. Each of them made me want to continue on and actually try to search for the answers myself. As for the action, however, well, I found it to be more substantially easier than the first game due to the number of supplies that the game provides you. Even if you don't look for them, you'll always find yourself stacked with a couple dozen ammos. And the interaction with the enemies is less threatening this time around, as they are so easy to walk past, especially during the outdoor section of the game. In fact, the encounters were so easy that I can count my total deaths on 2 hands. But of course, that doesn't discredit the fact that each of the enemies is totally unique and has an inspired design. One of the aspects that I and many loved about the original and that made it such an effective and memorable game was the disturbing Otherworld. It's a place filled with blood and such rawness that it makes me want to shiver just by exploring it. Silent Hill 2 also includes an Otherworld, however, instead of the loud and metallic environments, this Otherworld is bleak and quiet, and you'll be transported into this place as James delves deeper into his mind and the town. I'd be lying if I said that this Otherworld didn't disappoint me in the least, because I really loved the original so much. It was the main reason why I was in love and terrified of the game, yet this sequel has changed it drastically. On my first playthrough, I didn't even notice the Otherworld at all and thought that there wasn't even one to begin with. But after my second playthrough, I came to love it more despite still not feeling disturbed with it. The darkness and unknown creature noises amplified the tension so much, which made the entire experience definitely better and unnerving. My journey to the Foggy Town only took me over 4 hours to finish, but it felt a lot longer than that. I was also quite surprised to find out that there's actually multiple endings to the game, each of which offers a different perspective to the story. Of all the games that I've played, Silent Hill 2 has to have the best and most touching ending out there. Its delivery and message just drinks through my heart, making each viewing of it so heartbreaking. Silent Hill 2 is nothing short of amazing. It provides such a distinct and bleak experience that it's going to be difficult to forget. And while it didn't bring much new to the table in terms of gameplay, what it did implement was spectacular. Sure, there are definitely aspects that the first game did better, but as a storytelling medium, Silent Hill 2 is perfect. Our journey through town is not over yet. Next, we'll visit more of the town's streets as James' company, Maria, set before the events of Silent Hill 2.
Well then, everybody, thanks for tuning in.